offense. And I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, to wake up tomorrow morning and find out that the nation had been clamped down. Now, that clampdown is complete. The satellite systems will not work. You will not be allowed to make international calls. There's going to be no traffic in or out of the United States, period.
Now, hang on, Drake, because you said that it would be a court-martialing offense and unlawful orders if any soldiers would block roads. And now you're saying that air traffic is going to be blocked. How do those two things line up?
Hold on and listen.
Okay.
This is a neat one. The closure, of our national borders does come under the military auspices of control. They are allowed to do so in the event of extraordinary circumstances. This extraordinary circumstance deals with the freedom of our country. And the crooks who would take every last dime in this country with them when they decided to run for the hills.
Well, yeah, and the average person has now heard about Muppetgate, where this guy, Greg Smith, who was an executive chairman at Goldman Sachs, comes forward and says that he saw internal memos and that the prevailing climate there was toxic and destructive, and that the only thing they cared about was sucking as much money out of their clients as they could, and they called them Muppets, which is a British term that means a stupid, ignorant person.
Well, if you want to get down to the crux of it, I rather imagine most people remember the great fall of the stock market back 07, 08.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. One of the reasons it went as deep as it did, and we were lucky, one of the reasons it went as deep as it did was that trillions of dollars were automatically sent electronically out of the country. This was noticed because there are people that watch this thing called Stock Watch, money followers, things of that nature. And it automatically set off an alarm, which a guy noticed, and their communications got cut. Or it would have been a 1933 all over again. They did save us that much.
You're saying trillions with a T were flying out of the country?
Yes, and this happened within a matter of about 7 minutes.
Jesus.
Okay, now, the reason that the satellites are going to be turned off is to protect us from that.
I see.
The reason for no international travel is to keep the bankers from loading up a Learjet and taking off. If they do so, they will be shot down. This is going to be a complete total clampdown for a period of 72 hours, if need be. Now, it should take about 24 hours for the sweep necessary, mass arrest and all this stuff. Secondary sweep will probably take another 5 or 6 to make sure they got all the records necessary to convict these people. The other part of this is that there are certain areas that are sensitive that may contain explosive charges of varying kinds in order to blow up a record. You've seen a lot of these in movies lately where they blow things up and there's big balls of fire. Well,
absolutely.
That sort of explosive takes out records like you wouldn't believe. Okay, so in order to protect against that, this is the reason, for the closure. Now, this is a limited operation. At the time that they know that it is cleared, that the military portion of the action has been culminated, then, and I say military, the military backs the federal marshals who use the local police, etc. Okay. After that action is taken, we are going to have about a day's time to make sure that this goes viral on the internet. Hey, guess what? Look at this. And there will be some video supplied, as I understand it. I didn't know about this until just the other day.
Well, I may be talking out of school here, but I think you're underestimating it when you say the word some. I have been informed that there are DVDs upon DVDs worth of productions, some of which involve some very famous names that people will immediately recognize narrating these productions. And these productions will be apparently airing on television, nothing else, for 5 days running. And it's going to be wall-to-wall, and they're going to just be educating people about everything they need to know. That's what I heard.
There's another aspect to this.
Okay.
They're going to have what's called a specific education channel. That channel is going to run specifics as to the origins of these guys, the manner in which they accomplished what they did, and how the bad guys got in charge, basically. The DVDs you're talking about are similar, but this is a direct education thing, I understand. It could be, now, and it's not going to be limited to 5 days. This is going to run for several months, because what it's going to do is out this, in terms of the bad guys and their structure, how they took over and how to prevent it. After that, then, you get into what's called county projects, which lead to state projects, which leads to national projects. You're going to have enough people vacating from office that there's going to be an extraordinary immediate need for people who can step up temporarily, now I'm going to make this clear, temporarily to fill offices so that we can keep the function of the structure we have, basically. That way you don't have a train wreck, so to speak, in terms of the economy. You don't have everything going in the toilet all at once, or services interrupted, etc. So you're going to have some people appointed temporarily, and it will be specifically stated temporarily. Now, as I understand it, at the end of the 72-hour period, if it takes that long, it may not take that long, at the end of the period of time necessary, 72 hours or less, the public announcement will be made from the press room at the White House. That's according to the plan. The plan has become fluid a little bit because there's been some different things go on that weren't even available in terms of materials, in terms of the types of things that are available now, back when the plan was originally written or basically completed. So it is basically something that is totally awesome to be a part of something that deals with the rebirth of a country. I feel like I ought to have a musket and some kind of funny-looking hat, and be running around the woods hollering Yahoo!
I'm thrilled by this, and the whole reason why I wanted to conduct this interview was specifically to talk to you as you have all of a sudden popped out publicly and backed up something that I was almost the only person talking about. But I do want to make it clear that despite the fact that there's all this hate about me on the internet, and I am primarily a guy who writes about UFOs, the reason why I was trusted with this information is very simple. I'm not anonymous. It's my real name. I'm out there. I'm brave enough to talk about this stuff and risk whatever could come my way. And all it takes is for people to step up and do that. I happen to do that. So I'm sorry if people wanted somebody else, but this is what you got. I'm the one that they told, and now you've come forward, and I really appreciate that. I also want to just kick in here one very important point, and that is that if you go back to the origin of the Illuminati, which was revealed when documents from the original group founded by Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria were seized after an Illuminati henchman was struck by lightning on his horse, and then the Bavarian government officials found these Illuminati charter documents in his breast pocket of his blazer. It was from that point onward, in a series of other arrests that have happened since then, that they found that one of the key areas that these people want to control and completely dominate is science. And so in my book, Source Field Investigations, I have presented information regarding the truth of science and the truth that has been suppressed. It's very important to understand that human health does not require the products of the pharmaceutical companies. There is an aspect of human health that is related to consciousness. There is an aspect of human health that is related to good diet. And there are aspects of human health that are strictly energetic, and I'm talking about cures that require nothing but energy. And that energy, believe it or not, can be harnessed by building a pyramid, and it appears that the ancients who did this were much more knowledgeable than we gave them credit for. And so my point in bringing this up is that the scientific suppression is vast, and it includes a variety of information about the idea that our DNA, its primary function is to store photons. There's about 1,000 photons per DNA molecule, and when you have an area of your body that's sick, it loses those photons, and your DNA doesn't have those photons in them anymore. That's how you can measure where sickness is. A guy by the name of Dr. Fritz Albert Popp studied cancer and found that the only commonality between carcinogens is that they scramble light that comes in at 380 nanometer wavelengths, which is ultraviolet. What does that mean? That means ultimately that since cancer is cells running out of control in your body, the ultraviolet light that's stored by your DNA, which would break out when he broke open a DNA molecule, by the way, that light is being stored to send control messages to the cell that tells it to stop reproducing. Now, this is one of a vast variety of things that all leads into my main point, which is that it appears that we are going through some sort of evolutionary stimulus to the energetic portion of our DNA. And this is not a random speculation. This is actually based, for example, on the work of Dr. John Hawkes, an anthropologist from University of Wisconsin, who has studied the last 5,000 years of mummies and grave sites that he could dig up and analyze the DNA, and he's concluded that our DNA has changed structurally by a whopping 7% in the last 5,000 years. That means that human evolution has already rapidly sped up on a genetic measurable level. You can trace it in the DNA, and in the last 100 years, there's also something called the Flynn effect, which is that IQ scores have had to be readjusted every decade because people keep getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And so all of this leads back to ancient knowledge about the times that we're now in, which was inherited by these Illuminati New World Order people. And I make a very compelling case that they are well aware of these ancient cycles. They know that the cycles end in 2012. They believed that this would result in some sort of catastrophic earth change, which is a misunderstanding. I want to make that point very clear if I bring this up at all. That is that the origins of these ancient prophecies can be traced back to two ancient civilizations, one of which was in Antarctica, which we call Atlantis, the other of which was in what's now Siberia. The Earth's position did shift at that time, but according to a variety of credible threads of evidence that I've tied together, it was actually the result of nuclear weapons being used. People don't realize that the Earth was home to very advanced civilizations that lost their technology because 90-95% of beachfront property, which is where everybody wanted to live, was inundated. But these people had very advanced knowledge, and that knowledge was passed down from the Siberian strain to Iran in the form of Zoroastrianism, to India in the form of Hinduism, and on into Europe. So you got to go back to Zoroastrian and Hindu prophecy. What did they say about what was going to happen in the times that we're now in? Because everything else, and this includes Hebrew prophecy, Christian prophecy, Islamic prophecy, you name it, they all trace back to these original seed teachings. When you read the original seed teachings, the Zoroastrians say that we're going to go into a period they call Phrosokererti, which is where time changes. Something very intrinsic happens that changes the nature of our reality. And it's always been a mystery as to what exactly do they mean by that. Same thing with Egyptian prophecy. Same thing with ancient Greek prophecy that they inherited. It all keeps going back to, the Hindus said this too, the coming of a golden age. It's been widely misconstrued that this was going to lead to some sort of catastrophic disaster. What it really says, if you go back to the Hindu prophecy, for example, is that great saviors would come to the planet, and they didn't specify exactly what that was, but that it would turn things around in such a dramatic fashion that evil would be completely wiped out. And if you go back to the Zoroastrian prophecy, the time of Phrosokererti I was speaking of, it says that evil actually withers away due to the concentrated and focused efforts of the just. And so what I believe is that here we are talking on this radio program, we're doing our own humble best to do what's right for the planet, and in some greater incomprehensible framework that we may not be able to fully understand, our ancient mothers and